This episode of Distraction is sponsored by Landmark College, offering comprehensive support for students with ADHD and other learning differences. Learn more at lcdistraction.org. Landmark College, the college of choice for students who learn differently.
Do I blame the person who hurt me? Do I blame the person who left me? Do I blame, let's say, my parents who maybe got divorced? Do I blame this external factor that caused me to feel my fear? Or do I realize, wait a minute, I came to the world with this fear, and now I've been privileged enough to see it and to transform it, to remove it from my life completely. And when people point the finger and blame the external, they miss the opportunity to transform the negativity inside them.
Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell, and welcome to Distraction. Today's podcast is particularly interesting for me because I'm going to learn about something I know nothing about. Our guest, David Ghiyam, coming to us from Los Angeles, is going to teach us about Kabbalah One. David has a fascinating background. I'm just reading these notes I was given about him. He made $1 million in the stock market at 15 years old. His family then decided, before he became a ravenously greedy, materialistic American, they better turn him into someone spiritual. So they introduced him to other ways of interesting himself in life. And he graduated from UCLA at the age of 19, magna cum laude, with a degree in sociology, and was all set to go to business school so he could make even more money when he was struck with a more fulfilling idea. And he began volunteering full-time as a Kabbalah teacher at age 20. Now, I have no idea. Kabbalah teacher, for all I know, that meant he was a pastry chef. And has now conducted more than 1,000 live seminars throughout the United States. That's pretty amazing. I assume Kabbalah is not teaching people how to make $1 million at the age of 15, David.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, tell me what it is then.
All right, so a lot of people have heard about Kabbalah or the word Kabbalah, but very few people probably know the depth of what it is. And Kabbalah is simply ancient, universal, spiritual wisdom for every individual in this world. And what we learn in Kabbalah are basically the rules to the game of life, spiritual rules to the game of life. So in the same way that, for example, the world has physical rules and laws that we have to abide by, like gravity is a concept that everybody has to abide by, whether they believe in it or not. There are spiritual rules for our soul that everyone in this world needs to abide by. And when they do, they experience miracles and fulfillment. And obviously, when we don't follow the spiritual rules, we can enter a reality that's a little more chaotic, filled with ups and downs, and lacking fulfillment. So that's pretty much what Kabbalah is. And the classes that I teach nightly, I teach classes every night to crowds of people, are filled with people from almost every religious background or spiritual affiliation, from every different kind of culture. And they come to learn Kabbalah because what it does is it enhances and gives more meaning to whatever spiritual or religious background they're coming from, or even scientific. Because Kabbalah is so powerful, it kind of like unites all the different spiritual paths and wisdom into one. So the tradition, if people are interested, the tradition is actually that it started with Abraham, and that Abraham brought spirituality to the world, which was the wisdom of Kabbalah. Only later did people take from that wisdom and create various religions. But the spiritual wisdom was originating about 4,000 years ago with Abraham.
Where did Abraham get it?
So that's the discussion. There were Kabbalists before him even, but he was the main one who brought this wisdom to the forefront of the world. And it says that he received it from the Creator, that the Creator has chosen souls in this world to receive divine information that will be adequate for all the souls of this reality. And one of the main ideas of Kabbalah is that we came to this world to transform our nature, transform our negativity, transform our fears transform anything inside of us that we feel is blocking us from our highest potential. And by making that transformation, we plug ourselves into, or we connect to what's called the light of the Creator, which is the source of all fulfillment, miracles, answers, solutions, so on and so forth. And when we're not following those spiritual laws and transforming our nature, we're disconnected from that light. So we're living in a form of darkness as a result. So that was the wisdom that Abraham received from the Creator to disseminate to the world.
So Abraham received it from God.
That's the historical understanding, yeah.
And you say these are spiritual laws akin to physical laws the way gravity. So can you give me examples of some spiritual laws?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for example, it says that every soul in this world comes to the world with certain negative traits that are unique to them that they need to transform. So let's say a person comes to this world with anger, or comes to the world with a fear of abandonment that ultimately translates physically maybe in the cells or the DNA of the person. But what we're talking about, or maybe a chemical imbalance, but even this physical chemical imbalance is coming from a spiritual source or a spiritual root. So this negative trait, I'm simplifying it very much, that the soul comes to the world with is a negative trait that this person will eventually have to acknowledge and transform. So let's say the fear of abandonment, for example. This is a negative trait that someone comes to the world with, and their spiritual responsibility, and if they want to connect to miracles, to find their soulmate, to connect to prosperity and meaning in their life, is to transform this fear of abandonment. So what needs to happen, first off, is they need to experience that fear of abandonment. So the universe, this is how spiritual quantum works, the universe will send them certain challenges and situations that will awaken their fear of abandonment. They will then go through a process where they see their negativity in a very strong way. Now they have a decision to make. And we are faced with a decision like this on a daily basis. Do I blame the person who hurt me? Do I blame the person who left me? Do I blame, let's say, my parents who maybe got divorced? Do I blame this external factor that caused me to feel my fear? Or do I realize, wait a minute, I came to the world with this fear, and now I've been privileged enough to see it and to transform it, to remove it from my life completely. And when people point the finger and blame the external, they miss the opportunity to transform the negativity inside them. And because if they were able to actually look inside and transform, and Kabbalah gives tools of how to do that, they would then elevate to a new destiny, a new reality that's much more fulfilling with much more miracles. And they wouldn't have to experience that same negativity again coming back to them. So that's, for example, one basic foundational spiritual law that applies to every person in this world.
So, and what are some examples of the tools Kabbalah gives for transforming that fear of abandonment?
The simplest one is when something happens in your life that awakens an internal fear or lack, basically something that makes you uncomfortable. Someone bothers you. Someone says something to hurt you. An event occurs where you feel worried about your future. These are all situations that are sent to you to show you what you need to correct. In Kabbalah, we call this tikkun. Tikkun means correction in Hebrew. So I'm being shown my tikkun, my anger, my fears, my whatever. When you start to feel fear or lack, you have two options. Option number one is to react to the fear and to remove the fear through some form of instant gratification. So, for example, somebody insults you. The first thing is we feel fear and we feel lack inside of us. The first thing we want to do is to not feel that lack, so we lash out. We say something back. We get angry and we scream at them. That screaming actually gives us a little bit of instant gratification, but what it ultimately does is it completely disconnects us from the realm of the light of the Creator. So it says that when you have the opportunity to transform something, and instead of transforming it, you react to it, and you feed that negativity, as a result, you disconnect from that miraculous world of the light of the Creator. Why? Because the Creator is a force of sharing, a force of certainty, a force of love and compassion and all those things. And in order to connect with the Creator, you have to have similarity of form with the Creator. If a challenge comes up and brings you pain, and you react to it from fear and anger or whatever, everyone reacts differently, you now have a disaffinity of form with the Creator, and as a result, you're disconnected from miracles, from happiness, from solutions and joy, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you got to do? What's the tool that we give our students in our classes? The first tool is a simple tool, but it's a powerful one. You have to pause your reaction. You have to literally stop. And I tell my students something funny that they can say at that moment, like a mantra. They say, what a pleasure. What a pleasure that now I have an opportunity that this guy is making me angry, or this business deal that I just lost, or this relationship that's frustrating me, or this person is not respecting me. What a pleasure that I get to see now my weakness, my fear, my insecurity, so I can change it. And as a result, earn more of the light of the Creator, more of the fulfillment of my soul. That's a simple tool. Sounds so simple, but in the moment of a challenge, it's very hard to do. That moment where transformation is actually possible is the moment you feel that pain, that fear, that lack.
Okay, so let's say you're a woman who was born and your parents went through a terrible divorce when you were 7 years old, and so you were given this gift of discovering, your fear of abandonment. So you felt you went through the rest of your growing up years very, very sensitive to abandonment. And so then you get married, and let's say you're 35 years old, and your husband of, let's say, 8 years comes home one day and says, I've fallen out of love with you and I'm leaving you. So what you're supposed to say is, what a pleasure this is.
Well, when you put it that way, it makes it slightly comical, which I actually like. But this is a real life scenario that I deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you do too, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is to take a step back and understand the source here. The soul comes to this world with that aspect it needs to correct. And here's more of the spiritual understanding of it. The soul, before it comes to this world, all it cares about is the transformation of the negativity that's attached to it. So what the soul does is it chooses parents that are going to be volatile and end up in divorce. So it's interesting. Why did that soul, if you believe in the reincarnation of souls and the journey of souls from life to life, why did that soul choose those parents? Because it knew those would be the perfect parents to awaken a fear that's already ingrained on a cellular and cellular level. Okay? Mm-hmm. So the parents awaken it. A lot of times people think the parents caused that fear of abandonment by getting divorced. And Kabbalah looks at it the opposite. The parents simply awakened what was already there on a soul level that needed to be transformed. And that soul chose that parent. Now, let's say she grows up, and by the time she's 12 or 13, which is when Kabbalah says that a person can really begin to work on their personal transformation, she decides to ignore it. She doesn't work on herself spiritually. She just ignores all spirituality, all transformation. She hides her pain. She stuffs it somewhere. As a result, she always ends up dating unavailable men. Finally, things happen throughout her life. If she doesn't take responsibility and find that fear and remove it, she will keep meeting people who will be unavailable or who will commit to her and then eventually leave her to give her a second opportunity or third opportunity to transform. And that's why, for example, Kabbalah is so powerful. The sooner you learn it, because you learn right away how to transform that hamster in a wheel scenario, or that Groundhog Day, I think is even better way of looking at it, of having to repeat the same kind of relationships over and over again.
So it's all about recognizing the moment and then using the pain as an opportunity to master and transform?
Exactly. It says that a person only has one choice in life: how to react when a painful scenario occurs. And Kabbalah says that actually the only free will you have is that moment of discomfort, that moment of pain. And everything else is already a result of the decisions you made in the moment of pain. So it's so powerful because really when people take our classes, within the first couple classes, they already begin to make all the decisions in their life differently, and they break that pattern of reacting to their pain. Because everybody reacts to their pain in different ways. Some people lash out, some people shut down. Both are forms of reactive behavior. It all depends on the person.
And the Kabbalah recommends that you do what rather than lash out or shut down?
So Kabbalah says that at the moment of pain, you have to act like the creator. Right? And the creator is, we define what the creator is, which is all the positive characteristic traits that we're all looking to have. So the first thing is you have to pause. You have to stop trying to steal instant gratification to numb the pain. That's step one, right? That's why you pause. Step two is to accept. Accept that this challenge came for your highest good. That's why we say, what a pleasure, right? I'm actually accepting, even if I'm faking it in the beginning because it's so hard, I'm trying to accept that this is happening to me for a higher purpose of growth versus someone just trying to hurt me. That's step two. Step three is to ask myself, why is it in my movie? Why is this person bothering me? And to examine inside yourself what it is that you need to change. What are they awakening in? What negative traits are they awakening? So that's step three. These steps are what are called the proactive formula. So instead of being reactive, which is always going back to the same old pattern of shutting down or running away or fighting, instead of just always going back to that same old pattern, which gets you nowhere and never changes who you are, you're actually going to a completely opposite direction and you're acting proactive. Proactive means you don't react, you accept the situation, and then you ask yourself, what can you change about yourself? What is this bringing out in you that you need to change about yourself? And then step four is learning how to deal with the situation, which we teach. It's probably a whole other class to learn how you actually confront the situation.
Now, how does Kabbalah One see loss, like the death of a loved one? How does Kabbalah One?
That's a great question. That's actually something we learn in advanced. We have Kabbalah 1, 2, and 3. So that's usually some concept we talk about in Kabbalah 2. But even my wife came to study Kabbalah because she lost her brother in an unfortunate accident, and her father. They died prematurely, I would say. And she needed answers, and she wasn't getting them. She was going to therapists, and she was Catholic. She was going to religion. She just wasn't getting answers. And when she came to Kabbalah, she learned the bigger picture of why souls come to the world and why souls leave the world. And obviously it didn't take away all her pain, but it gave her an understanding of how spiritually life works. Because we have tunnel vision. We only see what we see with our five senses.
Right.
So an experience with our five senses. We don't see what happens when a person dies or what happens to that soul. So Kabbalah actually talks about that entire picture, about what happens to the soul, how you can stay connected to a soul, how you can grieve in appropriate ways so that you have happiness and connection with the one who's left versus always having to be in pain about it. So Kabbalah has very deep, methodical wisdom about loss.
And how to stay in touch with the person after they die.
Even so, yes, even so. So we talk about how you can connect to that person even after they leave this world. Absolutely. And it's not like some kind of mystical, like voodoo type thing. Sometimes people are like, what are you talking about? Like, give me practical answers. Like, we all have a highly intuitive side, and we all have a psychic side. We all have it, and we all can tap into it. And just because you can't see something doesn't mean you can't connect with it. So people start to really just tap into unseen power that they have. And absolutely, it could just be a feeling that that person is there for you. It's making you feel whole.
Does your wife now feel connected with her brother and father?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. She's seen so many miracles, so many different ways. Obviously, you can't completely remove the pain of loss, but Kabbalah has given her a level of peace of mind that she would have not been able to attain on her own. And I've had hundreds of thousands of people come through my classes, and I can already think of so many people who have lost children at a young age or lost parents they were very close to. And by Kabbalah One, they're upset, they're angry, they feel betrayed, they feel life is random, right? And they voice that in Kabbalah One. And I tell them, just be patient. I promise you in 4, 5, 6 weeks, sometimes it might take a lot longer, you'll have peace. I had a Holocaust survivor in my last class just 6 months ago. And she was so angry and upset in the beginning, I remember. And I told her, be patient, stay with us, and I feel you're going to have a greater sense of peace. And she stood up 4 or 5 months later and said, Kabbalah changed her life. And the first time she wasn't angry anymore. It was a really incredible experience.
Well, the whole thing seems wonderfully straightforward and very persuasive. You explain it very clearly, David. It's I love it. I'm going to look into it more. Now, you have not written a book. Is there a book, though? Is there
I have not written a book. My expertise has been just teaching and coaching. I've never actually had the time to sit down and write a book. I've probably done, I'm only 35 years old, but probably already done like 20,000 hours of one-on-one coaching. I felt the need to just be with people and to just put myself out there. But, a book is definitely something on the to-do list. Yeah,
well, it'll be a wonderful book when you get around to it. I'm so impressed. I'm gonna take the course, go online and go to Kabbalah One for listeners, KabbalahOne, Kabbalah1.com, David Ghiyam. Did I say it right?
You said it right, and it just came to my mind because I work with my colleagues. We all teach Kabbalah together. One of them has written a book called Power of Kabbalah. Power of Kabbalah is written by my teacher, Rav Berg, and that is probably the most powerful book on Kabbalah. It's basically the book version of the class. Not as in-depth, but a version.
The Power of Kabbalah, a very special man, David Ghiyam. We're so honored to have you on Distraction. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much for having me.
This episode of Distraction was produced by the lovely and talented Sarah Guertin and recorded by the marvelously intelligent Pat Keogh.